Have you ever stopped to wonder what actually keeps your bank account safe, or what rules are behind your credit card? Well, believe it or not, there's a massive, super complex rulebook for all of that. And today, we're going to take a tour of Title 12, the kind of hidden code that runs our entire financial system.
So here's the game plan. We're going to tackle this in 5 simple parts. First, we'll track down the government's master rulebook. Then, we'll zoom right into the section on banking, Title 12 itself. After that, we'll meet the financial guardians who enforce everything, see what those rules actually cover, and then, most importantly, we'll figure out why any of this matters to you and your wallet.
Okay, so before we dive into the deep end of banking rules, we got to figure out where these rules even come from. You can think of it like a giant official library for every single regulation in the country.
And that giant library has a name, the Code of Federal Regulations, or the CFR. And if you look at the official definition, you can see these aren't just suggestions. These are the permanent rules that every federal agency has to follow, covering everything from the food we eat to, how banks operate.
Now, here's a quick but really important detail. You've got the official printed version, the CFR, which only gets updated once a year, but then you have the online version, the eCFR, which is updated all the time. For what we're doing today, we're looking at the electronic version, just so we have the absolute latest picture of all the rules.
All right, so we found the library. Now let's head down the aisles and pull out the one book that's all about money. And that book is Title 12. It's the one specific chapter in that entire massive code that is dedicated completely to banks and banking. This thing is basically the master document for the entire U.S. financial system. And it is huge. I mean, look at this. Title 12 is split into 18 different chapters. Every single one deals with a different piece of the financial world, and each one has a different agency watching over it. It really gives you a sense of just how complicated this whole system is.
So with that many rules, you obviously need someone to make sure they're being followed. So let's meet the sheriffs of the financial world, the agencies that act as our guardians.
So who are these key players really? Who is making sure that banks are actually following the thousands and thousands of pages of rules inside Title 12?
Okay, here are 4 of the real heavy hitters. You've got the OCC, which keeps a close watch on the big national banks. Then there's the Fed, which is in charge of the whole country's money supply. You've definitely heard of the FDIC. They're the reason your deposits are insured. And then there's the CFPB, a newer agency whose whole job is to protect you, the consumer. Each one plays an absolutely critical role.
Okay, so we know who's in charge, but what are all these rules really about? Let's try to make this feel a little less abstract and actually look at what they cover.
I mean, we are talking about thousands of regulations. What could they all possibly be for? Well, you can pretty much sort them into 2 big buckets.
First up, rules that are all about protecting you. You've probably run into these without even knowing it. You know, there are rules that say your credit card company has to be super clear about your interest rate, and there are other rules that put limits on how debt collectors can contact you. It's all about making sure you get a fair shake.
The second bucket is all about protecting the banks themselves, which in turn protects the whole economy. This includes stuff like capital adequacy, rules on how much of their own money a bank has to keep on hand just in case things go bad. And then you have stress testing, where they literally make banks run simulations of a financial crisis to prove they could survive it. A lot of these rules got a lot tougher after the 2008 crisis, for obvious reasons. You can think of them as the economy's firewalls.
So we've got a giant rulebook, powerful watchdogs, and thousands of super specific regulations. But what does any of it actually mean for you? Let's connect all the dots.
Here's how it actually plays out. Congress passes a big general law, let's say one to protect people's savings. Then, an agency like the FDIC uses its power under Title 12 to write the nitty-gritty detailed rules about how deposit insurance works. And what's the end result? You can walk into a bank and deposit your money with total confidence, knowing it's safe. That's a direct line from Washington, D.C., right to your wallet. And that's really the key takeaway here. Title 12 might seem dense and boring, but it is not just for bankers and lawyers. It really is the invisible architecture providing safety and fairness in your financial life. It's working in the background every single time you swipe a card, take out a loan, or just check your bank balance.
And that pretty much wraps up our tour. So I'll leave you with this to think about. Now that you've had a peek inside this giant rulebook, what kind of rule do you think is more important for keeping the whole system from falling apart? The rules that protect us consumers, or the ones that protect the banks?